Well, hello rally friends, and welcome back to my kitchen table. It's a post-Acropolis Rally kitchen table, but guess where I am? You're not going to guess. You really are. I'm on the other side of the world. I'm in a beautiful little town called Feilding. Apparently, this place was voted New Zealand's prettiest town 15 times, would you believe? It's fantastic. And what am I doing out here? I'm out here for the Daybreaker Rally. It's a wonderful event, it really is. 190 kilometres, 11 stages, starts at 4 in the morning, goes right on till 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. It's a cracking event. Daybreaker Rally. Have a look on Google it and you'll find the Facebook pages, you'll find the YouTube channel, our Instagram page as well, and you can follow all the action from here in New Zealand. We're in the South Island of New Zealand, and it's just gorgeous to be here. So, what are we talking about from today's kitchen table? Well, clearly the Acropolis Rally, the ramifications of what we saw at the Acropolis Rally, and maybe the biggest ramification, the benching of Takamoto Katsuta by the Toyota Rally team. Interesting developments, and we'll talk a little bit about what that might mean for Katsuta, what that might mean in terms of a shift in strategy, in terms of how they deal with Takamoto. Clearly a driver with enormous talent, but still some way to go until he becomes the all-round dependable driver, and that is the big thing for Takamoto Katsuta. We will also talk a bit about Sebastian Ogier. We will talk quite a lot about Sebastian Ogier, in fact. We will talk about that fine he was given. I have to be very careful, sadly, in what I say about that, which doesn't sit well with me, that I need to be careful, because I would like to say an awful lot about it, but I'll try in a reasonable way to put across my views on the fine that Sebastian Ogier, the suspended fine that he incurred because of his stage end comments. We'll talk a bit about that, and we will talk about, clearly, Thierry Neuville and his magnificent performance on the Acropolis Rally, because it really was quite magnificent. Tough rally, difficult conditions, lots of pressure on him, and he behaved, performed, he conducted himself like a champion, and like the champion in waiting that he looks more and more as if he is heading towards the final 3 rounds of the year. So let's start then, shall we, with Takamoto Katsuta. Was it a surprise to hear that Katsuta has been benched for the rally in Chile? Benched, I mean, he's been given a rally off, and we understand it is just one rally. We're told he's back for CER, we're told he will then clearly be back for Rally Japan. For me, it was a surprise, a real surprise, and not because, I'm blind to what's going on, not because I'm blind to the obvious deficiencies in the way that they are developing Takamoto Katsuta as a driver, but because I just didn't see it. It's so important that as a Japanese manufacturer, that Toyota has a Japanese driver at the very top level of the sport. They've invested enormously in Takamoto Katsuta over the years, and he is a world-class driver. Make no mistake about that. He's got bravery, he's got skill, he's got ability, he's got commitment, he's got determination, but he's not the complete package yet. That's quite clear. He's scored a number of podiums, he's won a number of stages, but he's found himself a couple of times in good situations in rallies, particularly in Sweden this year, where it's looked as if maybe he's in a position to take that next step up and to actually fight for wins on rallies, and he's thrown it away. And you know what? Before the start of this rally, I talked with the Jari-Matti Latvala, and we talked about how difficult it is to, at times, get drivers to listen to exactly what they have to do, to what the bosses want them to do. Katsuta had a very particular job to do this weekend, and you could argue he's had a very particular job to do this year. As third driver, it is very clear. You're there as the safety net for the top 2 drivers. You're there to score those manufacturer points if and when you're called upon to do so. It's difficult. It's very, very difficult for a driver trying to prove himself, trying to continually improve, trying to continually push himself up that ladder in the WRC. It's almost, they're two contrasting roles. You want to prove yourself, you want to push, you want to show you can win rallies. But at the same time, that's not your job. Your job is to score those points, to keep that position, to make sure you get through the stages, to make sure come Sunday morning, Sunday lunchtime, you are there. You are there should anything happen to your top few drivers. Katsuta has not been that kind of, thank you very much. Lovely. Is this a local produce? I think it is. Oh, apple, orange and mango. Yum, I think that's mine. We'll have a wee sip on that shortly. Yeah, Katsuta, there have been question marks over his ability to combine those two roles. The development of himself as a driver, but the responsibility that comes with being a third manufacturer point scoring driver. Question marks all year about that. And I did talk to Latvala before the event about it. He said, look, he does listen. He's an intelligent driver. He does listen. He does know what his job is. He said, but occasionally, when he finds himself in a position where things are going really well, and he might have a chance at a podium, and on occasion, as we saw in Sweden, a chance of a win, he can get carried away. And I'm not quoting Latvala exactly, but that's more or less what he said. And you know what? He was almost signposting what happened in this rally. One stage in, fantastic opening stage time, really good splits on the second stage, got carried away, he made a mistake. It isn't good enough. It really isn't good enough. You look at the points that Katsuta has scored this year, and it's not enough. You look at the number of mistakes he's made, it's too many. He's not reliable, he's not dependable, he is not a third driver right now. He's not the third driver that Toyota needs. Now that is not taking anything away from Katsuta. I think the structure of that team hasn't been right this year. I think if Toyota don't win anything this year, there will be lots of questions about some of the decisions that have been made this year. And one of them, for me, will be the extra pressure that they've put on Katsuta to score those manufacturer points. Knowing the type of driver he is the sort of driver who very much sees himself as a winner. And you look back in history, and as I say, the two don't go together. The two really don't go together. A young, aspiring, determined driver looking to prove himself as a third point-scoring driver? No, it doesn't work. So am I surprised that they've dropped him? Well, they needed to do something. They needed to do something. And what they've done is dropped him, given him a bit of time to go away to think about his situation. He is a very thoughtful person. And to give him a little bit of a kick up the backside, I suspect. Will it work? Maybe. Has done in the past. What would be better? Take away the third manufacturer responsibility from him for next year. For me, that is the best way to do it. Allow him to make that next step up. You know, in some ways, the situation for me, it makes me fearful thinking about the potential of Adrien Fourmeau going to Hyundai next year, because he will be in a similar position, looking to prove himself as one of the elite drivers, the 3 or 4 drivers who go into every rally with a chance of winning, looking to elevate himself into that position, but having that responsibility of being the safety net to Neuville and to Tanak next year. It's not a good place for a young, aspiring, ambitious driver. And it does surprise me when we see team bosses allowing those situations to develop. You know, for me, I don't know what Toyota's situation is next year. I don't know what their options are going to be for drivers. But I don't think Katsuta, I think Katsuta should be there full time. Absolutely, he's so important to Toyota. He is so important to Japan for the World Rally Championship. But I don't know if he's the right driver as a third point scoring driver. And similarly, Fourmeau, should he go to Hyundai, it worries me. It really does worry me, that prospect of this young, fantastically talented driver doing what we know happens in Hyundai. You know, he's a sacrificial lamb. We've seen it. You know, Danny Sordo knows it. Who's the other driver? We've got Danny, we've got Esa-Pekka Lappi, and we've got Andreas Mikkelsen. They all know exactly what their role is. But they're drivers at very different points in their career. Danny Sordo is happy with where he's at. He doesn't want to do more rallies. He knows what his job is. He's getting paid to drive rally cars. If he has to give up a few positions occasionally, that's what he does. Likewise, Mikkelsen, and to some degree the same with Esa-Pekka Lappi. They know exactly what their job is, and they can manage that. Adrien Fourmeau, nah. Very, very, very different. He has the potential to be a world champion, and he'll find it difficult, as Takamoto has found it difficult, to temper, you know, that ambition, to temper that adrenaline that pushes you on, that allows you to become champion, to win rallies. Sometimes you've got to temper that if you're a third point scoring driver. Difficult. Is it the right decision from Toyota? Well, as I say, you know, they had to do something. They couldn't continue doing the same thing, making the same mistakes, and just saying, oh, well, it's just part of his makeup, it's what he does. No, 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 no. They had to do something, and I believe that what they've done is hard and harsh, and knowing how sensitive Takamoto Katsuta can be, I'm pretty certain he'll take it, not badly, but he won't take it that well, but he will go away and contemplate and come back, I'm sure, a better driver, a better person, maybe with a better understanding of exactly what he's got to do going forwards. So that's Takamoto Katsuta, replaced by Sami Pairi. Sami Pairi, goodness me, he's going to get 2 more rounds now. He's going to get CER as well before the end of the year. I think that's been confirmed. I'm pretty sure it has. So yeah, you know, just incredible, an incredible rise. You know, we saw the debut in Finland. And do you know, I'm looking forward to see Pairi against Sesks when we get to Chile. Sesks in the Rally 1 minus car, obviously without the hybrid. That will be an interesting little tete-a-tete, head-to-head between those 2 youngsters. Wonderful to see Pairi back in the Rally 1 car. Again, a young driver with remarkable potential. Is he the answer for Toyota next year? Well, only as a 3rd driver, 3rd point scoring driver. Well, do you know what? Quite possibly, if he understands his position, which is gain experience of rallies in the Rally 1 car, make the most of his time in the car, yeah, you know, if that's what if that's the job he's offered, he will clearly take it. He would have to be disciplined. He would have to be absolutely disciplined. I think from what I know and what I've seen of Pairi, he has the ability to do that. Anyway, moving on. There's so much to talk about, isn't there? We could talk at length about Pairi against Sesks and what those 2 youngsters, where their path might lead them next year. But let's move on, and we'll move on to talk about Sebastian Ogier. Ogier's performance in Greece was fabulous until that final stage. He was so fast on Friday morning. He really was, 45 seconds up on just about everyone until he had that turbo issue. Same turbo issue by the sound of things. We're told that Elvin Evans suffered in the morning, Ogier suffered in the afternoon, and it knocked him back. It made his weekend very difficult. He then got involved in, and this is what I love a bit of spice, you know, and we saw a little bit of mind games going on, a little bit of psychology being played by Sebastian Ogier with Thierry Neuville. Neuville was strong enough and mature enough not to react to it, and it was wonderful just watching that confrontation throughout the weekend. Yeah, it's wonderful watching them competing on the stages, but occasionally we do see them competing off the stages as well, and that is what we had. You know, Ogier was very, very calculating. It was very thought through. It wasn't an off-the-cuff remark. It was a remark he repeated to 2 or 3 different media crews, and he knew what he was trying to do. He was trying to unsettle Thierry Neuville, and he didn't. Neuville showed his quality. He showed his maturity. He showed his ability just to focus on what's required. He did a great job. Now, what I wanted to talk about, though, with Ogier was this suspended fine. Well, let me tell you a little bit about Ogier that I'm pretty certain you'll all have picked up anyway. I'm going to repeat it. Ogier is a statesman. He's a spokesman for our support. For our sport. He's a figurehead. He's a man who stands up. He's not afraid to put his head above the parapet and talk about things that other drivers know they should talk about, but they don't for whatever reasons. He's a remarkable man, 8 times World Rally Champion, and you know what? There's a certain amount of respect we should all afford to him because of what he's achieved in this sport. But we should also afford him respect because he is a very principled and decent and good person. What he said at the end of that stage was not unreasonable. You know, he was making a point. Many, many times, drivers have talked about dust, and we knew the dust was going to be an issue, and he wasn't offensive, particularly. In fact, he wasn't. I've read it a number of times, and I've thought, who would take offence at that? I'm not sure who would, but we're told when we read that steward's decision, and I've got to say, I've never seen a steward's decision quite like it. The way it was written was remarkable, And I talk about respect, and I talk about affording people respect. It's not just in your actions, it's in your words, your spoken words and your written words. And we have to always bear that in mind. Everyone has to bear that in mind. From me, as just a common commentator, to the FIA, as our arbitrators of all that is right and the rules around rallying. it was a remarkable steward's decision in the way it was worded. Respect is so important in every aspect of how we communicate. Respect is so important. But you know what? If you're going to make an example of someone, and I am 100% behind the FI's efforts to stamp out online abuse. Online abuse is nasty, it's vicious, it's hurtful, it is debilitating for some people. And I can speak as someone who has suffered over 20 years in this sport from an awful lot of online abuse, but it comes, I accept it. It comes with the position. You know, I put myself out there, I offer opinions, I expect a bit of abuse. I expect people to disagree with me. You know, I don't expect personal abuse, and it hurts when it happens, but I can deal with it and move on. Now, there are vulnerable people in our society who have to be protected from it. That is correct. That is 100% correct. But if you're going to make an example of someone and punish someone, don't forget, Ogier never used inflammatory language. He didn't use any profanities. And his fine was 30 times Mads Osberg's fine, who was the last person to be fined under the same legislation. 30 times. If you're going to make an example of someone, look for a history. Look for a history of abuse. Look for someone who you think, actually, this person doesn't understand. They don't understand. You know, they are figureheads. They do influence youngsters. And their behavior shows a pattern of disrespect. You show me that with Sébastien Ogier. There isn't. He isn't that sort of person. It doesn't happen. It was a very, very, very bad, in my view, a very bad example to make for a very worthy cause. And what might it mean? For me, we can't just launch these things left, right, and centre, these accusations. You know, we need to, you know, it is a really serious thing. And it's almost trivialised by saying that what Ogier said was abuse. It trivialises, in my view, real abuse. And what does it mean? What are the consequences, potentially, of that ruling? Well, the consequences could be quite far-reaching. If I was a driver, considering how relatively innocuous what Sébastien Ogier said was, if I was a driver, I wouldn't say anything at stage ends. I wouldn't say anything for fear of saying the wrong thing. And that's a disaster. That is a disaster for our sport. Stage ends are a very unique part of our sport. They give us an insight that very few other motorsports have, an insight into the driver's psyche and mentality and experience. The second, more or less, in the seconds after they've put their life on the line coming across, you know, a Greek mountain road with precipitous drop-offs, with rocks at 180, 190 kilometers an hour, and we get their instant reaction. All of that now for me is in doubt. If I was a driver, if I was a team boss, I wouldn't let my driver say anything. If I was Sébastien Ogier, and fair play to him, he has reiterated his commitment for the final rounds. If I was Sébastien Ogier, I'd be looking at that going, why bother? Why should I bother? You know, why should I bother going back to face that sort of reprimand? So it doesn't sit well with me. I'd like to say more and I won't, because I've probably now already said too much. If you want to read a very, very, very good article on it, have a look on dirtfish.com. My colleague Alistair Lindsay wrote a very, very emotional piece about his thoughts on it, and as he is not accredited by the FIA, he was able to be perhaps a little more free in his expressions of emotion than maybe I should be, and I've probably been a little bit too loose in this talk. But I'm not just angry, I'm upset. I'm really upset because it is such a good cause. You know, stamping out online abuse is so important. Setting examples, so important. And B, you know, it just seems to me, you know, Sébastien Ogier, oh, you know, the poor lad, he does tend to cop it, and I feel for him. I'm not sure, really, that he'll have felt too bad about it all, because, you know, he's above all that. He really is. But I would like to say more. I won't. You've got more or less the gist of my feelings. I think it was questionable, and I'm disappointed to have read it. I'm disappointed to have actually read it, because the reading of it was difficult. The actual fine itself seemed astronomical in relation to other fines for similar supposed offences. And then the fallout from it for me is the other thing that I'm upset and disappointed with. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But there we are, Sebastian Ogier, big talking point, and it will continue to be a talking point, because remember, he has this fine now hanging over him for 2 more years, suspended for 2 years. That means, should he say anything that the authorities deem to be offensive to anyone, he will have to pay that 30,000 euros. Wow. Are we going to hear much from Ogier over the next 2 years? We will wait and see. Okay, moving on. Moving on, Thierry Neuville, magnificent. Just a magnificent performance. Do you know, it's very odd. I've watched Neuville's career from the very, very early days in the IRC. I was there on Corsica when he won his first rally, first international rally. And I've watched his career. I've watched, obviously, his career in the early days with M Sport, and then this continuing relationship that he has had with Hyundai over the years. And, you know, he's been runner-up in the World Rally Championship 5, 6 times, something like that. And I've never really seen him. I know he's got the ability to be a world champion, but I've never seen him as a world champion. And a world champion has a certain bearing about them, a certain presence about them. And I've never seen that until this weekend, And it clicked with me. It was like, yeah, it's not just the points, but it was the way that he conducted himself, the way he conducted himself on and off the stages. I thought that is a world champion in waiting. Thierry Neuville, you have, you know, what is he now? Mid-30s, something like that. He looks more and more like not the world champion in waiting, but an actual world champion. And okay, I don't want to jinx him. We've still got 3 rounds to go. Anything might happen. But you'd have to say, the way he's dealt with the issues that he's faced this year, you know, anything that the final 3 rounds might throw at him, you know he's going to deal with. He quite clearly has the car. You know, it's quite remarkable the way that Rally 1 Hyundai has been turned around. It was homologated when it was a dog of a car at the start of the season, what, 2.5 years ago now. And they've turned it around and they've made it into the most remarkably competitive and reliable car. 1, 2, 3 in Greece, twice. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. The team have given Thierry Neuville the tools, and Thierry Neuville has stepped up personally and professionally on the stages and off the stages. And he will deliver, I'm almost 99% certain, Hyundai's first driver title in the next rally or 2. It was wonderful to watch, and just that awakening for me, seeing Thierry as a world champion was a great thing. I really did enjoy the way he conducted himself, the way he drove this weekend. Let's look forward very much to the next 3 rallies and seeing what Neuville can do. So there we are, folks. We are looking forward now. It is now Friday morning here in New Zealand. The Daybreaker rally gets underway this evening and runs all day Saturday. So by the time you see this, the rally might be done and dusted, but there will be plenty of videos on our YouTube channel, the Daybreaker Rally YouTube channel, on the Facebook page, on the Instagram page. Have a look there. Just Google it as well, and you'll see some of the most beautiful countryside anywhere in the world. And what does beautiful countryside gives you? It gives you magnificent stages, and that's what we have here in the Manawatu and the Rangitikei region. You'll also see a bit of Feilding where I am now. It is a wonderful, welcoming little town, and I'm looking forward to coming back here tomorrow for a bit of a driver, meet the driver session, a driver's autograph signing session in the middle of town, in the middle of the day. That is also going to be very exciting. Folks, thank you very much for joining me. Not quite my kitchen table, it's a wonderful little cafe here in Feilding that we're at today. If you've enjoyed this, don't forget to like the video, share it, whether that's on Facebook or if you want to share the link from YouTube, that would be great. Leave comments as well. What did you think of Ogier's fine? Was it justified? Let me know. Let me know if you think it was justified. What do we think about the treatment of Takamoto Katsuta? Was that justified? And am I justified in seeing Thierry Neuville as a champion in waiting? I'd love to read your comments below. Folks, thank you very much for joining me from my slightly improvised kitchen table here in the beautiful little town of Feilding on the North Island of New Zealand. We'll see you all again very soon indeed.